I am Jelena Adams, 32 years old, and a self-made real estate agent who built my life from scratch after my own family abandoned me. Growing up in a chaotic household in Chicago taught me resilience, but nothing prepared me for their ultimate betrayal when I needed them most. Finally, finding peace in my own home felt like victory, until that Tuesday morning when they showed up uninvited at my doorstep with suitcases. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe if family drama stories resonate with you. My childhood in our middle-class Chicago neighborhood looked normal from the outside. We lived in a modest two-story house with a small backyard where neighborhood kids would gather. But inside those walls, my reality was very different. My parents, Harold and Grace Adams, ruled our home with rigid expectations and emotional manipulation that shaped my early years. From my earliest memories, I understood the family hierarchy. My older brother, Thomas, was the golden child receiving praise for everything from his average grades to his mediocre athletic abilities. My parents attended every one of his baseball games and framed his certificates, no matter how minor the achievement. Meanwhile, my younger sister Karina learned quickly that following our parents' lead and agreeing with their every opinion was the path to approval. I never quite fit that mold. When Thomas received a new computer for bringing home B's and C's, I brought home straight A's and got a simple "good job, Jelena" before the conversation shifted back to Thomas. When Karina mimicked our mother's opinions on everything from politics to fashion, she was deemed mature for her age, while my different perspectives were labeled as always needing to be difficult. My passion for architecture and real estate emerged early. I would sketch house designs during school lunch breaks and read property magazines while other kids watched cartoons. I remember saving my allowance for 3 months to buy a book about American architectural styles, proudly bringing it home to show my parents. "What a waste of money," my father scoffed, barely glancing at the pages I was eagerly showing him. "You could have bought something useful." My mother added, "Dreaming about fancy houses won't get you anywhere, Jelena. You need practical goals." That same week, they spent $200 on a new baseball glove for Thomas. Despite their dismissal, my interest only grew stronger. In high school, I joined the architecture club and convinced my counselor to let me take a special summer course at the community college about basic real estate principles. I was the youngest person there by at least 5 years, absorbing everything I could about property values, market trends, and investment strategies. When college application time came, my parents made their expectations clear. They wanted me to pursue nursing like my mother or accounting like my father. Something reliable, they insisted. "Real estate is reliable," I argued during a particularly tense dinner. "People will always need homes." "In this economy," my father laughed, "the market crashes every decade. Use your brain, Jelena." Thomas, home from his first year at college, where he was barely maintaining a 2.0 GPA, chimed in. "Yeah, sis, not everyone can afford to chase silly dreams like you." Despite their opposition, I applied to programs with strong business and real estate focuses, securing a partial scholarship to Northwestern University. When the acceptance letter arrived, my parents' response was lukewarm at best. "Well, at least it is a good school," my mother said. "Though I still think you are making a mistake with this real estate nonsense." I worked 2 part-time jobs throughout college to cover expenses my scholarship didn't. While Thomas called home regularly for extra money and Karina had her full ride funded without question, I made do with what I had. I graduated with honors, securing an entry-level position at Prestige Properties, a well-respected firm in downtown Chicago. The first 2 years of my career showed promise. I worked longer hours than anyone else, volunteered for the difficult clients, and studied market trends in my spare time. By year 3, I was outperforming colleagues with twice my experience. My commission checks grew, allowing me to rent a decent apartment and start building savings. My family's attitude shifted slightly with my success. Suddenly, they mentioned our Jelena, the real estate hotshot, at family gatherings, though the comments always carried an undercurrent of, "We will see how long it lasts." The first time they directly asked for my financial help came when Thomas needed money for a security deposit after being evicted from his apartment. "Just $3,000, my mother said during a Sunday dinner I had been reluctantly attending. "He will pay you back once he gets settled." Despite knowing the money would likely never be returned, I wrote the check. Thomas never mentioned it again, not even a thank you. 3 months later, Karina needed help with car repairs. Then my parents hinted about struggling with property taxes. Each time I helped despite their years of dismissing my choices. Family helps family, my mother would say whenever I hesitated, making me feel guilty for even considering saying no. I convinced myself that perhaps this was their way of finally accepting me. That by coming to me for help, they were acknowledging my success and validating the path they had once criticized. I wanted so badly to believe that I had finally earned my place in the family that I ignored the warning signs that they were simply using me as their personal bank. Little did I know how quickly their superficial acceptance would evaporate when my financial situation changed. When I could no longer provide for them, I would learn exactly where I stood in their eyes, and it was nowhere near the place I had hoped to occupy. The economic downturn hit the real estate market like a tidal wave. In the span of 3 months, housing sales in Chicago dropped 60%. Prestige properties, once bustling with activity, became eerily quiet. Listings sat unsold for months, and clients withdrew their properties from the market, hoping to wait out the storm. "We have to make some difficult decisions," Richard, the firm's owner, announced during a somber office meeting. "We simply cannot maintain our current staff levels." Being among the newer agents despite my success, I was in the second round of layoffs. Richard handed me a modest severance package with genuine regret in his eyes. "You have real talent, Jelena. When things improve, you will be my first call." I left the office that day with a cardboard box of desk items and an unexpected sense of optimism. My track record was strong and I had built a decent network. Surely another firm would snap me up quickly. I had enough savings to cover 3 months of expenses while I searched. This was just a temporary setback. But as weeks turned into months, my confidence began to waver. Every real estate office in the city was downsizing, not hiring. Even administrative positions in the industry had hundreds of applicants. My carefully accumulated savings dwindled as rent, utilities, and student loan payments continued without pause. By month 4 of unemployment, I was skipping meals to stretch my budget and had received the first warning about late rent. That evening, I swallowed my pride and called my parents. Our conversation played out like a poorly written tragedy. "Mom, I hate to ask, but I am in a tough situation right now." I began, each word painful to speak. "The market crashed and I lost my position. I have been looking for work nonstop, but nothing has come through yet. I might need a small loan for next month's rent until I find something." The silence on the other end lasted several seconds before my mother responded, her voice noticeably cooler. "Oh, Jelena, this is exactly what your father warned you about, isn't it? Real estate is so unstable. No sympathy, no concern for my well-being. Just the satisfaction of being right about my career choice. I understand that, Mom, but right now I just need some help getting through this month. I can pay it back as soon as I am working again." "Well, we have already committed to helping Thomas with his graduate school application fees, and Karina needs new tires for her car. We are not made of money, you know." The same Thomas who had dropped out of 2 programs already. The same Karina who had received a new car from them just last year. "Please, Mom, I might lose my apartment. Maybe you should have chosen a more stable career path like we suggested. Or saved more when you were making all those commissions you bragged about." I had never bragged, and a significant portion of those commissions had gone to helping them and my siblings. My father got on the line then. "Jelena, you made your bed by ignoring our advice. Part of being an adult is dealing with the consequences of your choices. We cannot bail you out every time your unstable industry takes a downturn." Every time. This was the first time I had ever asked them for anything. The rejection stung, but what came next was worse. My family did not just refuse to help. They seemed to take pleasure in my struggle. Thomas called a few days later, not to offer support, but to rub salt in the wound. "Heard you are having trouble with your dream career," he said, laughter in his voice. "Maybe now you will listen to Mom and Dad about getting a real job." Karina was no better. I later learned she had been telling extended family members that I had been irresponsible with my money, spending lavishly on designer clothes and vacations, when in reality, I had lived frugally and invested wisely until the market collapsed. The final blow came during a family dinner. I was reluctantly attending, hoping against hope that seeing me in person might stir some compassion. Instead, it became a public humiliation session. Jelena was just telling us how she might be moving to a more affordable place my mother announced to everyone at the table, though I had shared this information privately. Maybe she can finally learn the value of practical career choices, my father added. Remember when you told me my business management degree was boring compared to your exciting real estate career? Thomas smirked across the table. Who is struggling now? The words that cut deepest came from my mother as I was leaving. Maybe if you had listened to us, you would not be in this mess. We always knew this would happen. 2 weeks later, my parents called to discuss the annual family vacation they still planned to take, despite the economic downturn. They expected everyone to contribute $500 regardless of circumstance. I literally cannot pay my rent, I explained. There is no way I can afford a vacation right now. Well, that is your choice, my mother said coldly. But if you are not invested enough to prioritize family time, perhaps you should reconsider what family means to you. That was the last conversation we had before they cut me off completely. No calls, no texts, no acknowledgement of my existence. I was excised from the family for the crime of being unable to fund their vacation while facing homelessness. As I sat in my apartment that night, surrounded by past due notices and job rejection emails, I finally understood the conditional nature of their love. I was only valuable to them when I was financially useful. Now that I needed help, I was disposable. The eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday, giving me 72 hours to vacate my apartment. I sat on the kitchen floor back against the refrigerator, reading the legal language through tears. 3 years of building my life in this space gone. The shame felt suffocating. With nowhere else to turn, I called my colleague and casual friend Anita Reynolds. Our relationship had mostly revolved around office happy hours and the occasional lunch. But she was the only person I could think of who might understand without judgment. Of course you can stay with me, Anita said without hesitation after I explained my situation. My couch is yours for as long as you need. That couch became my home for the next 3 months. I kept my belongings in 2 suitcases, tucked neatly behind the sofa, trying to minimize my footprint in her space. Depression settled over me like a heavy fog. Each morning, I forced myself to shower and maintain the appearance of someone who had not given up, even as the rejection emails continued to fill my inbox. To contribute to Anita's household and keep myself afloat, I took whatever work I could find. Mornings at a local coffee shop as a barista, evenings at a retail store folding clothes weekends, walking dogs for people in Anita's building. The real estate credentials that had once been my pride now felt like useless pieces of paper as I served lattes to business people rushing to the offices I had once hoped to work in. The lowest point came when I ran into my sister Karina while working the register at the clothing store. Her expression shifted from shock to thinly veiled disgust. Jelena, this is where you are working now. I maintained what dignity I could, just temporarily until the market improves. She looked around as if worried someone might see her talking to staff. Well, good luck with that. We missed you at Christmas, but I guess you were busy. She gestured vaguely at the store before walking away, not bothering to purchase anything. They had not invited me to Christmas, not a single call or message. But in her revised reality, I had been too busy working retail to attend family gatherings. The turning point came on a particularly cold January morning. I had arrived early for my barista shift, the sky still dark as I prepared the coffee shop for opening. A woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair and impeccable business attire was waiting at the door, shivering slightly. "Thank goodness," she said as I let her in. "I have an important meeting and desperately need caffeine." I prepared her Americano with extra care, noticing the real estate portfolio she spread across a corner table. Unable to help myself, I commented on one of the properties as I delivered her drink. "That Victorian on Maple Street has amazing potential. The south-facing windows would fill the living room with natural light all day." She looked up surprised. "You know real estate?" "I was an agent before the crash," I admitted. "Now I just serve coffee to people who still have careers." Instead of the pity or dismissal I expected, Sydney Willis handed me her business card. "I run a small boutique agency focusing on historic properties. We have survived the downturn by specializing. Come by my office when your shift ends. I might have something for you." That something turned out to be an entry-level administrative position at Willis Historic Homes. The pay was barely above minimum wage, but it was in real estate. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. "I cannot offer much to start," Sydney explained in her straightforward manner. "But you will learn every aspect of specialized real estate from the ground up. If you work hard, there is room to grow." I started the following Monday, arriving an hour early and staying late every day. No task was beneath me, from filing paperwork to cleaning the office kitchen. I absorbed everything Sydney was willing to teach, asking questions during lunch breaks and studying market reports in the evenings. Anita celebrated my small victory by helping me find an affordable room to rent in a shared apartment. The space was tiny, barely fitting a twin bed and small desk, but it was mine. I taped a single photograph to the wall, not of my biological family, but of the office team at Prestige Properties. A reminder of what I was working to reclaim. 6 months into working for Sydney, she trusted me to handle client calls and paperwork for closings. At 9 months, she sent me to represent her at a small property showing when she had a scheduling conflict. The clients, a young couple buying their first home, responded well to my thorough knowledge of the property and neighborhood. "You have good instincts with people," Sydney noted after they made an offer. "Perhaps it is time to renew your real estate license." My first commission check as part of Sydney's team was modest by my previous standards, but felt like winning the lottery. I celebrated by paying Anita back for her generosity and moving to a studio apartment of my own. The space was small, but represented independence, regained through my own efforts. Throughout this period of rebuilding, I began therapy sessions at a community center offering sliding scale fees. Dr. Lisa Chen helped me process the family abandonment that still felt like an open wound. "What your family did was not a reflection of your worth," Dr. Chen reminded me during particularly difficult sessions. "Their conditional love speaks to their limitations, not yours." Slowly, I began to build what Dr. Chen called a chosen family. Sydney became a mentor figure who showed me what supportive guidance actually looked like. Anita remained a loyal friend who had seen me at my worst and still valued me. New colleagues at Willis Historic Homes invited me to holiday gatherings when they learned I had nowhere else to go. On the 1-year anniversary of my family cutting ties, I sat alone in my small apartment and wrote letters to each family member that I never intended to send. I poured out my hurt, anger, and eventual acceptance that they were incapable of providing the unconditional love I deserved. After reading each letter aloud, I burned them in a small metal trash can on my tiny balcony, watching the ashes disperse into the night air. It was not forgiveness exactly, but a release. I was no longer waiting for apologies that would never come or validation they were incapable of giving. As the last letter burned, I made a promise to myself I would build a life so secure that I would never again be vulnerable to people who saw me as nothing more than what I could provide for them. The following years brought steady growth both professionally and personally. Sydney proved to be not just an employer, but a genuine mentor who saw potential in me that even I sometimes doubted. Her boutique agency specialized in historic homes and unique properties that larger firms often overlooked, creating a niche market that remained relatively stable, even in uncertain economic times. "Jelena, I want you to take lead on the Westbrook property," Sydney announced during our weekly team meeting 2 years after hiring me. The Westbrook house was a stunning Victorian mansion, being sold by one of our most prestigious clients. Everyone in the office straightened up, surprised by her decision to entrust such a valuable listing to me. "Are you sure?" I asked when we were alone in her office afterward. Sydney's expression was serious. "I do not make business decisions based on sentiment. You have the best understanding of the property's historical value and the most compatible communication style with the sellers. You have earned this opportunity." The successful sale of the Westbrook house for well above asking price led to my promotion to senior agent. My client list grew as previous customers referred their friends and family, appreciating my thorough approach and genuine care for helping them find the right home, not just any home. I developed a specialty working with first-time homebuyers, remembering the vulnerability and confusion I had felt during my own periods of housing insecurity. I created detailed guides for them explaining every step of the process in accessible language and advocated fiercely on their behalf during negotiations. When the pandemic hit and in-person showings became impossible, I pioneered an innovative virtual tour system for our agency, complete with interactive elements that allowed potential buyers to open closets, check water pressure, and experience different lighting conditions through specialized photography. The system was so effective that real estate publications featured it, and other agencies in the region began adopting similar approaches. The Jelena method became something of a joke around the office, referring to my meticulous preparation and client care. Sydney presented me with an award for highest customer satisfaction in the agency 3 years running. "I always knew you would outshine us all eventually," she said during a small celebration in the office. "Your success comes from genuinely caring about helping people find their homes, not just closing deals." Throughout these years of professional growth, I lived modestly, saving a substantial portion of each commission check. My goal was clear: I wanted to own my home outright. A fortress of security that could never be taken away from me. The memory of facing eviction had created a determination to achieve a level of housing security that was absolute. By my 31st birthday, I had saved enough for a substantial down payment and began the house hunting process for myself. The irony was not lost on me that after helping countless clients find their perfect homes, I was now my own most demanding client. "You are impossible to please," joked Lori, a colleague who had volunteered to help with my search. "You have turned down properties that your buyers would snatch up in a heartbeat." "This is different," I explained as we left another almost perfect house. "This is not just about finding a place to live. This is about creating a sanctuary that is completely mine." After touring nearly 30 properties, I founded a craftsman-style house in a quiet neighborhood with mature trees. Built in the 1920s, it had been lovingly maintained by the same family for generations. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, hardwood floors throughout, and a kitchen with large windows overlooking a backyard garden. The moment I walked through the front door, a sense of peace settled over me that I recognized as home. The owners, an elderly couple downsizing to move closer to their grandchildren, seemed pleased by my appreciation for the house's character and history. "We have had higher offers," Walter, the husband, told me after I submitted mine, "but none from someone who clearly loves the house as much as you do. We built our family here. It matters to us who continues that story." When my offer was accepted, I sat in my car outside the property and cried, overwhelmed by the journey from homelessness to homeownership. 5 years earlier, I had been sleeping on a friend's couch with 2 suitcases to my name. Now I was purchasing a house that represented everything I had worked to achieve. Moving day arrived with unexpected emotional intensity. Sydney closed the office for the afternoon, so the entire team could help, arriving with boxes, furniture, and enough food to feed twice our number. "This is what family does," Sydney said simply when I tried to thank her, and the word family no longer stung the way it once had. I had rebuilt that concept from scratch, filling it with people who showed up not out of obligation but genuine care. The first night in my new home, I slept on a mattress on the floor of the master bedroom, too exhausted from moving to set up the bed frame. Looking up at the ceiling in the darkness, I felt a profound sense of achievement and safety. This house was mine, earned through perseverance and hard work. No one could take it away. The following months were filled with small home improvement projects that transformed the house from simply mine to truly me. I painted the walls, refinished cabinets, planted flower beds, each change a physical manifestation of putting down roots. My therapy sessions with Dr. Chen shifted from processing trauma to building a vision for my future. "You have created extraordinary stability from extraordinary instability," she noted during one of our now monthly check-ins. "That is remarkably rare and speaks to your resilience." As the 5-year anniversary of being cut off from my biological family approached, I realized I had not thought about them in months. The sharp pain had dulled to occasional wondering about their lives. I no longer checked their social media or asked mutual acquaintances for updates. They had become characters in an old story rather than active participants in my present. My 32nd birthday celebration was small but meaningful, hosted in my backyard with the chosen family I had gathered. Sydney brought an expensive bottle of champagne. Anita baked my favorite cake, and colleagues and friends filled my garden with laughter. As the evening wound down and guests departed, I sat alone on my porch swing, feeling a contentment that once seemed impossible. I had no idea that the peace I had so carefully constructed was about to be shattered by an unexpected return from the past. Tuesday morning began like any other. I was preparing for client meetings, laptop open on the kitchen island as I reviewed property listings while sipping coffee from my favorite mug. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, highlighting the gleaming countertops I had recently refinished myself. The house was quiet except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and occasional chirping of birds outside. The doorbell rang just after 9, an unexpected sound that made me glance at my calendar to check if I had forgotten an appointment. Finding nothing scheduled, I made my way to the front door, assuming it was a package delivery or perhaps a neighbor. Nothing could have prepared me for the sight that greeted me when I opened the door. Standing on my porch were the 4 people I had not seen in 5 years: my father Harold, mother Grace, brother Thomas, and sister Karina. They were older, of course. My father's hair had gone completely gray, my mother had gained weight, Thomas had developed a receding hairline, and Karina stood with 2 young children half hidden behind her legs. For a moment, I thought I might be hallucinating. The shock of seeing them rendered me temporarily speechless, my hand frozen on the doorknob. "Jelena, darling," my mother exclaimed, her voice carrying the same artificial warmth I remembered from childhood whenever we had company over. "Look at you, you look wonderful." Before I could respond, they were moving forward collectively, my father putting his arm around me in an awkward half-hug that felt entirely foreign, guiding me backward into my own foyer as if I were the visitor and he the resident. "What a lovely home you have." My mother continued, already looking around, eyes scanning the furnishings and decor with an appraising gaze. "You have certainly done well for yourself." They filed in one by one, Karina nudging her children forward. "Say hello to your Aunt Jelena," she instructed. The children, a boy and girl, approximately 5 and 7, stared at me with understandable confusion. They had never met me, never heard of me as far as I knew. "What are you doing here?" I finally managed finding my voice as they made themselves comfortable in my living room without invitation. "How did you even find my address?" Thomas laughed, flopping onto my sofa and putting his feet up on my coffee table. "You are not exactly hiding, sis. You have that real estate website with your photo and everything. We have been keeping tabs on you." "Keeping tabs on me," I repeated the words, not quite computing. After 5 years of complete silence, they had been monitoring my life from afar. My father was examining my bookshelf, running his fingers along the spines of design books I had collected. "Nice place you have here. Spacious. Good neighborhood too, we checked it out online. Property values in this area have been increasing steadily." There was something calculated in his assessment that sent a chill down my spine. This was not a casual observation, but an evaluation. My mother had wandered into the dining room and was admiring the chandelier I had carefully restored. "This lighting fixture must have cost a fortune. And is that real hardwood flooring throughout? You must be doing very well in your business." Something in her tone reminded me of the way she used to speak right before asking for money, that particular blend of compliment and calculation. "Why are you here?" I asked again, more firmly this time. "It has been 5 years without a word from any of you." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Water under the bridge, darling. Families have their ups and downs. But we are here now, and that is what matters." Thomas had taken out his phone and was snapping photos of my living room. When he caught me watching him, he grinned, "Just sending some pics to my buddy. He is in real estate too, wanted to see what kind of place you have." "Say, what are you pulling in these days anyway? 6 figures." The directness of the question was startling. But before I could respond, my father cleared his throat in that authoritative way that had silenced many family discussions in my childhood. "Jelena, we have some news to share, which is why we have come today." He gestured for everyone to sit down, an absurd command in my own home. Nevertheless, I found myself perching on the edge of an armchair while they arranged themselves on my furniture. "Your mother and I have sold our house," he announced. "The neighborhood has gone downhill. Property taxes keep increasing, and maintenance on that old place was becoming too much at our age." "I see," I said cautiously, unsure where this was heading. "Are you moving to a smaller place?" My mother and father exchanged glances before she answered with a bright smile that did not reach her eyes. Well, that is what we wanted to discuss with you, dear. We thought, given how well you are doing and all this space you have here, that the most sensible solution would be for us to move in with you. The statement hung in the air like a physical presence. I blinked, certain I had misheard. Move in with me, I repeated. Family should stick together, my father said firmly, as if stating an irrefutable fact. We are getting older. Karina is going through a rough patch with her ex, and the kids need stability. This house has plenty of room for all of us. I thought I could take the blue bedroom upstairs, Karina chimed in clearly, having already explored my home while I was distracted. The kids could share the smaller room next to it. They do not mind bunk beds. My mother stood up and patted my shoulder. Your father and I would take the master bedroom, of course. At our age, we need the attached bathroom. You could take the basement space. It looks like you have fixed it up quite nicely. It would give you privacy. I sat in stunned silence as they continued planning the redistribution of my home around me. Thomas mentioned converting part of the backyard into a workspace for his upcoming business ventures. My father discussed changing the kitchen layout to better accommodate family meals. Karina's children had already run upstairs and could be heard jumping on what I assumed was my bed. We would all contribute to utilities naturally, my mother added, though the vagueness of this promise was telling. And having us here would be good for you, Jelena. You spend too much time alone. It is not healthy. How would you know how I spend my time? I asked quietly. You have not spoken to me in 5 years. A flash of irritation crossed my mother's face before she composed it back into a pleasant mask. Now, do not be difficult, Jelena. That is all in the past. We are family and family forgives. Thomas snorted from his position on the couch. Besides, it is not like you have a real family of your own. No husband, no kids. What do you need all this space for anyway? The words hit with physical force so familiar to the dismissals of my childhood, yet somehow more painful in my own home, the sanctuary I had built for myself. You do not even have a family, my mother agreed, her tone suggesting she was being kind by stating this obvious truth. We are your family, and we need this house more than you do. Need it, I echoed, finally beginning to understand what was happening. My father's expression hardened into the one I remembered from whenever financial discussions had occurred in our household. Let us be practical, Jelena. Your mother and I invested a lot in raising you. Thomas is between opportunities right now, and Karina needs support with the children. This arrangement makes sense for everyone. And if I say no, I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Thomas sat up straight, suddenly serious. Well, that would be complicated. I have been talking to a lawyer friend about family property rights. Given that Mom and Dad supported your education that led to your real estate career, there might be a legal claim to be made on assets resulting from that investment. The threat was thinly veiled but unmistakable. They had not come to reconnect with me. They had not come out of love or concern. They had come to take my house, to claim what I had built from the ashes they had left me in. As they continued discussing how they would rearrange my life and home around me, I sat perfectly still, a strange calm settling over me. This was not a new betrayal, but the continuation of the old one. They had abandoned me when I had nothing, and now they had returned only because I had something they wanted. Their voices faded into background noise as I watched them move around my living room, already acting as if they owned it. 5 years of hard work of rebuilding myself, piece by piece, of creating safety and stability, and they thought they could simply walk in and claim it as their due. The decision about what to do next formed with crystal clarity in my mind. I need you all to leave, I said, standing up from the armchair. My voice was calm but firm, cutting through their ongoing conversation about furniture arrangements. They all stopped talking and stared at me as if I had suddenly started speaking a foreign language. Excuse me, my mother said, her pleasant facade slipping just slightly. I said, I need you to leave my home, now. I maintained eye contact with each of them in turn, standing my ground in a way I never had as a child. My father's expression darkened. Jelena, do not be ridiculous. We are family. We are discussing important matters here. We have not been family for 5 years, I replied evenly. You made that decision when I needed help and you turned me away. Thomas scoffed. Are you still hung up on that? So, we did not give you money during the recession. Grow up, Jelena. Everyone struggles sometimes. It was not about the money, I said quietly. It was about the complete absence of compassion, support, or basic human kindness from the people who should have cared most. My mother's face tightened with anger, barely concealed beneath her smile. Now you are just being dramatic. We had our own concerns to deal with. Please leave, I repeated. This is my home purchased with my money, maintained with my work. You are not welcome to live here. Karina, who had been relatively quiet until now, stepped forward. You always were selfish, Jelena. Some of us have children to consider. She gestured upstairs where her kids could still be heard running around. Do you really want your niece and nephew to be unstable? Those children are strangers to me, I pointed out. You never made any effort to include me in their lives until you needed something from me. My father abandoned any pretense of friendliness. Listen here, Jelena. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. Everything you have now is because of what we gave you. You owe us. I owed you respect and love as a child, which I gave freely, despite how little I received in return, I acknowledged. As an adult, I owe you nothing, especially after you abandoned me when I was at my lowest. Thomas stood up, his posture becoming threatening. You are making a big mistake here, sis. I was not joking about legal action. We can make things very difficult for you. On what grounds, I asked, genuinely curious about what fiction they had invented. Financial support during your education, emotional distress for your parents in their senior years, family property rights, he listed off, clearly bluffing. My lawyer friend says we have options. Your imaginary lawyer friend is giving you very poor advice, I replied. Now, for the last time, please leave my home voluntarily. My mother's voice turned saccharine, a tactic I recognized from childhood when intimidation had failed. Jelena, sweetie, we are just trying to find a solution that works for everyone. Surely we can discuss this reasonably as a family. We discussed everything reasonably 5 years ago when I asked for help to avoid homelessness and you told me I deserved to struggle because of my career choices, I reminded her. That discussion is long over. The tension in the room was palpable. My father stepped toward me, using his height to try to intimidate me as he had throughout my childhood. We are not leaving, he stated flatly. This house has plenty of room for all of us. And frankly, you have no legal grounds to deny shelter to your elderly parents. We will be moving our things in this weekend. End of Lear NU 6. I nodded, once maintaining my composure. I see. Excuse me for a moment. I should get some refreshments if we are going to continue this conversation. The look of triumph that passed between my parents was almost comical in its transparency. They thought they had won, that I had capitulated under pressure, as I always had as a child. In the kitchen, I closed the door behind me and took out my phone. With steady fingers, I dialed 911. 911, what is your emergency? The dispatcher answered. I need assistance with removing unwanted individuals from my home who are refusing to leave and making threats. I explained calmly, keeping my voice low. They are family members who have shown up unannounced and are now claiming they intend to move in against my wishes. After providing my address and confirming there was no immediate physical danger, I was assured officers would arrive shortly. Before ending the call, I opened the recording app on my phone and set it to capture audio. When I returned to the living room with a tray of water glasses, I had no intention of serving. I placed my phone discreetly on a side table, recording active. Before we discuss this further, I said, I want to be clear about what you are proposing. You want to move into my home without my consent, correct? We are family, Jelena, my mother repeated, as if this explained everything. Of course we would live together. And you plan to take my master bedroom, relegating me to the basement of my own home, I continued. It makes the most sense, my father confirmed without hesitation. Your mother and I need the space more than you do. And Thomas, you mentioned legal action if I refuse. Could you elaborate on that? Looking pleased with himself, Thomas leaned forward. Like I said, there are family property rights we can invoke. Given that Mom and Dad supported you, we can make a claim on this house as partial repayment. It might get messy with lawyers involved, but we would rather avoid that unpleasantness if you just cooperate. I see, I said, nodding thoughtfully. And Karina, you and your children would take over the upstairs bedrooms? Yes, she confirmed. The kids deserve proper rooms and you are just one person. It is only fair. Just to summarize then, I continued, you have arrived unannounced at my home, declared your intention to move in without my consent, threatened legal action if I refuse, and plan to redistribute the rooms of my house according to what you decide I deserve rather than what I decide own. You are making it sound worse than it is, my mother complained. Am I? How would you characterize it? We are family helping family, my father stated firmly. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. 4 sets of eyes turned toward the entryway. Expecting someone, Thomas asked suspiciously. Actually, yes, I replied, moving to answer the door. 2 police officers stood on my porch, a male and female in uniform. Miss Adams. We received a call about unwanted individuals refusing to leave your property. Yes, officer. Thank you for coming so quickly, I said, relief evident in my voice. Please come in. The officers entered, and the atmosphere in the living room instantly shifted. My parents straightened up my mother's face, arranging itself into an expression of confused innocence, while my father adopted the authoritative posture he used when dealing with officials. There must be some mistake, my mother began. We are just visiting our daughter. Officers, I can explain, my father added. This is a family discussion that got a little heated. Nothing more. The female officer looked to me. Ma'am, can you explain the situation? These individuals are my estranged family members who I have not had contact with for 5 years, I explained calmly. They arrived unannounced today and have declared their intention to move into my home without my consent. When I asked them to leave, they refused and threatened legal action against me. I have a recording of their statements from just before you arrived. I retrieved my phone and played back the last few minutes of conversation, including Thomas's threats and my father's declaration that they would be moving in regardless of my wishes. The male officer turned to my family. Is this your residence? Well, no, but, my father began. It is a family home, my mother interjected. The property is solely in my name, I clarified. I purchased it last year with no financial contribution from any family member. The female officer nodded. In that case, as the legal owner, you have the right to determine who can be in your home. If you want these individuals to leave and they have refused, we can escort them out. This is absurd, my father blustered. We are her parents. And I am a property owner asking unwanted visitors to leave my premises, I countered. Sir, ma'am, the male officer addressed my parents. You need to gather your belongings and exit the residence now. If you refuse, you could be charged with criminal trespass. Karina began crying, a tactical display I recognized from childhood. Officers, I have children upstairs. Surely you would not throw children out. Your children are welcome to remain with their legal guardian, which I assume is you, the female officer replied. But if their legal guardian is required to leave, they must go as well. The reality of the situation finally seemed to dawn on my family. The officers were not going to be swayed by emotional manipulation or false claims of family unity. This is how you treat your family, Jelena, my mother hissed as she gathered her purse. By calling the police on us. I learned from the best, I replied quietly. 5 years ago, you showed me exactly how family treats each other when it matters most. Under the watchful eyes of the officers, my family collected their belongings and the children who looked confused and frightened by the sudden tension. As they filed out onto the porch, Thomas turned back with a final threat. This is not over, Jelena. We have rights. Sir, any further threats could be considered harassment, the male officer warned. I suggest you leave peacefully and contact a lawyer if you believe you have legitimate legal claims. After they had gone, the female officer provided me with information about obtaining a restraining order. Based on the recorded threats, you would likely have grounds if you feel unsafe. Thank you, I said, suddenly exhausted as the adrenaline began to fade. I appreciate your help. Family situations can be the most difficult, she acknowledged with a sympathetic nod. Make sure all your doors and windows are secure and do not hesitate to call again if they return. After the officers left, I sat alone in my living room, the house eerily quiet after the chaos. The space that had felt like a sanctuary that morning now felt violated, as if my family's brief presence had left an invisible stain on the rooms they had so casually planned to claim. That afternoon, I made 3 phone calls, first to a security company to install a comprehensive system with cameras, then to my therapist, Dr. Chen, for an emergency session, and finally to a lawyer specializing in family law to ensure I was protected from any frivolous legal claims. Based on what you have described, they have no legitimate claim to your property, the lawyer assured me. But documenting everything is crucial. The recording was a smart move. The violation I felt was profound, not just of my physical space, but of the life I had so carefully constructed from the ruins they had left me in 5 years ago. Yet, beneath the hurt and anger, I felt something unexpected: strength. I had faced them on my terms in my space, and I had not crumbled under their pressure or manipulation. For the first time in my life, I had stood my ground against them and won. The days following my family's invasion felt surreal. I would find myself startling at ordinary sounds, half expecting to see them standing in my living room again. The security system installation brought some peace of mind, but the psychological security I had built over 5 years felt fundamentally shaken. What you are experiencing is a secondary trauma, Dr. Chen explained during our emergency session. The first trauma was their abandonment. This new intrusion has reopened that wound, but also added a new violation: the threat to your physical security and home. I nodded, struggling to articulate the swirl of emotions. The thing that keeps bothering me is that they watched me for years, tracking my success from a distance, never reaching out until they saw something they wanted. That realization is painful but important, Dr. Chen noted. It confirms what you have suspected about the conditional nature of their connection to you. They did not come back because they missed you or regretted their actions. They came back because you had something of value to them. The blunt assessment hurt, but also validated my experience. I had not imagined or exaggerated their exploitation. It was real, documented now in police reports and audio recordings. My chosen family rallied around me in ways my biological one never had. Sydney arrived the evening after the incident with dinner and a bottle of wine, sitting with me until late, offering both practical advice and silent companionship when words failed. "You did everything right," she assured me. "You protected yourself with remarkable clarity in a situation designed to confuse and manipulate you." Anita organized a house cleansing gathering that weekend, bringing friends to help me rearrange furniture, sage the rooms at her insistence, and fill the space with new positive energy. We moved the living room layout, completely buying a new sofa to replace the one my family had claimed so casually. Sometimes you need to reclaim your space physically before you can reclaim it emotionally, Anita explained as we pushed the last piece into place. The support extended beyond my immediate circle. When I shared what had happened with my regular clients, many sent cards, flowers, and words of encouragement. One client, a retired judge, offered legal connections if I needed them. Another, who worked in private security, provided additional consultation on protecting my home. In the weeks that followed, I found myself drawn to others who had experienced family estrangement. Through Dr. Chen's recommendation, I joined a support group for adults navigating complex family dynamics and estrangement. The stories shared in that circle helped me understand that my experience, while painful, was not unique. Many others had faced similar betrayals and boundary violations from those who should have been most trustworthy. Family estrangement is rarely discussed openly, Margaret, the group facilitator, explained during one session. There is so much shame associated with it, as if having toxic family members is somehow a personal failure rather than a circumstance beyond your control. Those words resonated deeply. For years, I had carried a sense of failure around my family relationships, wondering what I could have done differently to earn the love and support that seemed to come so naturally in other families. Now I was beginning to understand that some people simply lacked the capacity to love unconditionally, and no amount of achievement or compliance on my part would change that fundamental limitation. 3 months after the incident, I decided to channel my experience into something constructive. Drawing on my real estate expertise and personal history with housing insecurity, I established a small foundation to help young adults who had aged out of foster care or experienced family estrangement secure stable housing. Starting with just 2 beneficiaries, the program provided security deposit, assistance, financial literacy, training, and mentorship through the renting process. Having a safe place to call home is not just about physical shelter, I explained to Sydney when sharing my plans for the foundation. It is about creating a base of security from which everything else becomes possible. You are taking your pain and transforming it into purpose, Sydney observed. That is the mark of true resilience. The foundation work became a healing practice, allowing me to support others facing the isolation I had once endured. Each young person who secured stable housing through our program represented a small victory against the insecurity that family rejection often created. 6 months after my family's attempted takeover, I received an unexpected email from my brother Thomas. Unlike the threats he had made on my porch, his message seemed genuinely reflective. "I have been doing a lot of thinking since that day at your house," he wrote. "While I cannot speak for our parents or Karina, I want to acknowledge that what we did was wrong both 5 years ago and recently. Your success triggered my insecurity, and I lashed out instead of acknowledging my own poor choices. I understand if you never want to speak to me again, but I wanted you to know that I am sorry for my part in hurting you." I read the email multiple times, searching for the manipulation that had characterized our previous interactions. Dr. Chen helped me process my conflicted response. "You do not owe him forgiveness or a relationship," she reminded me. "But if you are curious about whether his change is genuine, you can explore that cautiously, with strong boundaries in place." After careful consideration, I agreed to meet Thomas at a public coffee shop neutral territory where I felt safe. Our conversation was awkward at first, years of hostility and hurt, creating a chasm between us. But as we talked, I sensed something different in his demeanor, a humility that had never been present before. "Watching you build your life from nothing after we abandoned you made me realize how little I have accomplished, despite all the advantages I was given," he admitted. "It was easier to resent you than to face my own failures." "What about Mom and Dad?" I asked. "Have they reflected at all on what happened?" Thomas sighed. "They are still living in their own reality, where they did nothing wrong. Dad talks about your betrayal in calling the police, as if showing up to claim your house was perfectly reasonable. Karina follows their lead as always." I nodded, unsurprised but still disappointed. "And you? What do you want from reconnecting with me?" "Honestly, nothing practical," he replied. "I have started therapy and am trying to build a life based on my own efforts rather than taking from others. I just wanted to acknowledge the harm I participated in and see if over time we might find a way to have some kind of relationship as adults on your terms." That conversation marked the beginning of a cautious reconnection with Thomas. Our relationship developed slowly with clear boundaries and expectations. He never asked for money or favors, seemed genuinely interested in my life, and respected my need for distance from our parents and Karina, who continued to make occasional attempts to contact me with thinly veiled requests for assistance. As my 33rd birthday approached, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 years. From homelessness to homeownership, from abandonment to building a chosen family, from vulnerability to strength. My house had become more than property. It was the physical manifestation of my resilience, a space I had earned through perseverance and protected through courage. The most profound lesson I had learned was about the true meaning of family. Blood relation, I now understood, guaranteed nothing beyond shared genetics. Real family, the kind that sustained and nurtured, was built on mutual respect, consistent support, and the freedom to be authentically yourself without fear of conditional love. "Home is not just where you live," I told a young woman receiving assistance from my foundation as she signed her first lease. "It is where you are respected, valued, and safe. Sometimes we have to build that for ourselves when it is not given to us." That truth had cost me dearly to learn, but its value was immeasurable. In losing the family I was born into, I had gained the clarity to build the life and relationships I truly deserved, founded not on obligation but on genuine connection and care. As I sit in my garden writing this reflection, I am struck by the peace I have found after such turbulence. The house stands solid around me, my sanctuary rebuilt stronger after being threatened. The chosen family I have gathered continues to expand each relationship, adding richness to my life without the toxicity I once accepted as normal. What does family mean to you? Is it defined by blood or by actions? Have you ever had to create boundaries with toxic relatives to protect your peace? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that creating your own definition of family is not just possible, but sometimes necessary for your well-being. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember that you deserve relationships that honor your worth, not just use you for what you can provide.